Huh. Oh, well, that was really loud. Fuck. Hello. I saw a freelance show off this weekend. It was the highlight of my weekend. I say freelance because showing off, unsolicited showing off. I am fully aware of what I'm doing right now. If anyone's listening, I know my mum is, and I think there's 9 other listeners. One of them's called Jimmy. All right, Jimmy, how you doing? Have a good Pride weekend? Probably. Freelance show off. I don't like unsolicited showing off, really. I like to go to do comedy open mics, but at least they're in a place where there's a poster up which says free comedy happening here, which is normally a good sort of sign for people not to go in there. But it's fun for us and all our friends. Did try go busking once, which is kind of unsolicited showing off. I went. I felt quite anxious before I went, so it's kind of a bad sign. I didn't know any songs, which was I had some that I'd written, which turns out no one wanted to hear. So I went to 3 sort of prominent busking spots in Brighton, and sat down for a bit, and then just got up and went to a different one without taking my guitar. Ended up outside the William the Fourth. Across the road from the Dead Wax Social, which is like right in the middle of Brighton, and I started playing some original compositions. I think it was on a Saturday, lunchtime, around about 2. I don't know how. That's a late lunch. Probably after lunch. You're having maybe some afternoon tea. Then a scone. Have a scone. It's scone time. I did busking at scone time in the centre of Brighton, playing original music, and also I think I used to do a Moby cover. Which is techno, so probably, but not like the cool busking videos you see where someone plays drums made out of tubs and a saucepan and people gather around and then they get like hundreds of thousands of YouTube hits. No, I was playing non-percussive acoustic guitar to a song which has about 4 lyrics in it. But anyway, a man gave me £1 to shut up. I saw him walking towards me, brandishing £1 from the bottom of the street, where the main street is. There's a good 50 meters. He already had his pound at the ready, and I thought, man, this guy's really into my low key acoustic grunge music. But he put the pound in my case and said, "Will you stop now?" So I did. I took his pound, and I bought probably some sweets with that pound. Professional busker I was for about an hour, but that is unsolicited busking. My other half Thighs does busking, and she sat behind me, but she probably she does it in a gang, so it's easier in a gang. I did try and join their gang once, played an egg for a bit, pissed off the main member of their leader of their gang. This guy called Tom. He's the main guy. Got annoyed at my egg shaking. But I was also drinking cider on the street, so give me an egg and I will shake it. I thought it was in time. It's hard to shake an egg out of time, really. Turns out he didn't agree with that. He didn't say anything at the time, but I later found out didn't like the egg. So I'm out of the band. I was in the band briefly, and now I'm out of the band. So currently bandless. But this man, I was working at a diner called 7 Hotel Diner. It's a fun name. It's an American restaurant, which is how the Americans say restaurant. Stole it from the French. It's a kind of place where if you go for breakfast, you have your normal bacon and eggs, but on a pancake with syrup. That sort of place. It's quite good. If you like that sort of thing, there's a place in Brighton called Nowhere Man, which is the most hipster cafe in the world. All their seats are claimed from the sea. They've got car seats in there, which you can sit on to wait, and you will wait. You will wait up to an hour for a table because they have 3 tables, and all the tables look like they've come from several different grandmas' houses. And downstairs is a tattoo studio, which you have to sort of walk through to get to the toilet. So, you could go for a piss, accidentally get a dolphin as a tramp stamp. It depends on how, if you ask for that or not, I suppose. But yeah, tattoo studio downstairs. Upstairs, they do banging pancakes. We had one with whipped cream. I think it was eggs, pancakes, bit of whipped cream on there because it sounds like someone accidentally did that once and it turned out all right. And the Americans are quite they're known for being on the larger scale of the people. I feel like it goes if you got the Earth, you go from maybe over this side towards where Japan is, smaller people, and then as you go across, you get more and more sort of wider. I'd say wider. There's a big bit of the in the middle where that's the sea. There's no people there, but if they were there, there'd probably be between 250 and 170 pounds. I think that's probably the average size of a Western person. I don't know what a pound is. I think I'm gonna say I'm 180. 13 and a half stone. I keep weighing myself. But yeah, 13 and a half stone. Probably more because I've been working in an American place all weekend and fattening myself up because I was allowed to let loose with a deep fat fryer. So that's fun. If you go north, people get taller. In the cold, you got Icelandic people, giant Vikings, and then Russians, tall, thin Russians. I think it's got something to do with the vodka. I was drinking anyway because who was the guy from the Fantastic Mr. Fox? Boggis, Buns, a Bean. Bean was the fat one. Bean, he's a bean, isn't he? He had donuts stuffed with duck. Who was the tall one? Boggis? No, he was the angry one. He's the one who was well annoyed with the fox. He's the one who told him to go and sit in a bush and wait for the fox to come out, blow his ass off with a shotgun. Got his tail, kept that. It's quite embarrassing for a fox to not have a tail. Turns out. The tall one, anyway, drinks a lot of cider and has a very aggressive French rat guarding it. He's the one who is tall. So I don't know, alcohol. Russians are tall. Go down to if you go south and make these stereotypes, becomes racist. I suppose it starts racist if you go. I don't know what is, but anyway, Australians are all various heights because they're not real and the Earth is flat. So what am I saying? Oh yeah, there's a freelance show off in this American diner. If you go to Nowhere Man, by the way, maple butter. It comes in a little ramekin of maple butter, and you put it on your pancakes, and it's sort of like moist, syrupy butter, and it's the best thing ever. If I had £1 million, I would invest in a company that made beer hats, but instead of beer, they have just bottles of maple butter, and then it would come down to the straws would come down on my face. But I wouldn't just drink butter like a maniac. I would, as I eat any food that comes towards my mouth, I would have a little buzzer on my wrist that I'd press, and a bit of maple syrup would drop on just a little bit onto every single bit of food that I eat. A pancake, a tuna sandwich, just some cereal, and anything, human flesh, whatever I happen to be eating that day, I'd have a little bit of maple butter on, and then I would die in about 5 years of just being poor because I've spent my £1 million on this really uninvestable idea. But if anyone's making those, and if anyone has a sort of really easy to win lottery, which maybe only involves me, and you get to choose one number, and the number is 3, I will enter that. And I think it's a good business idea. I was working at the 7 Hotel Diner. I saw a family of people with mullets. They're not the show-offs. I feel like having a mullet is kind of a show-offy haircut. Mohawk is more show-offy than a mullet. What's the most one? What are you laughing at?
It's not a mullet.
What?
It's a mullet.
What? A mullet's a fish. There was a family of people wearing fish. Fish is a hat. No, it's my accent, I feel. Yeah, mullet. Mullet. Yeah, that's right. Isn't mullet the fish? Millet.
Millet is
Millet is a grain. Is that right? A grain? Yeah, millet's a grain. Mullet's a fish. Mullet is a fancy haircut. Worn by kings, traditionally. Kings and queens. Short on the front, long on the back. You can't... From the back, just got long hair. You're like, oh, that guy's got long hair. And from the front, you're like, that guy is in the army. But a family of mullets. There was a kid with a mullet. There was a man with a mullet. His wife didn't have a mullet, which is kind of disappointing. But he wasn't the freelance show off that I'm talking about. There was a table of about 30 people celebrating a birthday. I don't know whose birthday it was. I thought it'd be rude to ask, to be honest. But they have this burger, Build-A-Bear burger. Build-A-Bear. No, I was going to say something else. Build-A-Burger burger, it was. And I was going to say, it's like, do you remember the Build-A-Bear workshop? It's like that, but if the bear was a burger, and you get to put all the different clothes on him, which was like the garnish, which is like a bit of lettuce or some bacon or some barbecue beans. So they have a list of all the things you can have. You could have a bit of fried chicken on there. You could have a waffle instead of bread, which I thought was mighty interesting. That's cool. It's like what you'd make when you were a student. Like, all we got is waffles and this bit of husk of meat. Let's just put that together and eat that. Bit of maple butter from the old tubes. Put that on there. Sounds actually like something I'd like to have for my own lunch. But anyway, he ordered everything on there. So he's got the normal burger, a burger on top of that. Both of them got cheese on. He's got crispy bacon on both of those things. In the middle of that, he's got a Cajun chicken. On top of that, he's got barbecue beans, which is part of their Texan burger. Very exciting burger it is. And so he's got all that on. And then he's got other shit on. Onion rings in there. Basically, this burger was as tall as a fully erect baby. And by erect, I mean standing on its hind legs. And by hind legs, I mean back legs. Because its hind legs of a baby would be its arms. Because I guess babies do have hind legs because they can't necessarily walk. So their arms are legs your arms are legs when you're a baby. And they become arms when you learn how to use your hind legs. Much in the way a baby centaur would have. It would walk like a horse, but then also would crawl with its baby arms, wouldn't it? So it'd be like a sort of half horse, half man centipede, wouldn't it, for a bit? And then as it got older, the front half of the man would become more strong. They must have a bad back. I feel they're always leaning forward, like the lady on the front of an old fashioned ship is always like leaning out. Must be annoying. And the centaur must do some sort of centaur yoga. I'm sure that's a niche genre of yoga that you can probably do where I live, the home of niche yoga. Beer yoga is a thing. I feel like just go to the pub, you middle-aged women. Just go to the pub. You don't mind the pub anyway, and just drink your beer there. And then, don't worry about the yoga if you're going to be all drunk. So his burger was about the size of a fully erect baby. And it must have cost him £35. Normally the burger costs a tenner, and then you add the extras on, which is like £2 per extra. And he ordered all of the extras, and there's like 10, 15 extras. So his burgers are a fucking expensive burger, dude. That's you can get steaks there, like a full-on 12-ounce ribeye steak for half the price of his burger. And he ate, I'm going to say a fifth of his burger, and that's what I mean by freelance show-off. Because I'm going to say he's called Gary. I reckon he's called Gary. He seems like a Gary. Everyone's done their order. People are ordering normal shit. Someone's ordered the maple syrup, pancakes, bacon, eggs thing. Someone's ordered like, I'll have a double burger. I'm feeling pretty hungry. And everyone's like, I don't know if you can manage that, Sandra. And she's like, I haven't eaten since breakfast. That sort of thing. And then she's having a double burger. And then Barry on the other side, he's Gary's brother. Barry and Gary, very inventive parents. He on the other side, he's having a chicken salad because he's trying to watch his weight. He's also drinking 5 pints. So he's obviously got that mixed up. Like when people go to McDonald's for a salad and then they have a milkshake and the castor sugar dressing that they put on the top there. I had an interesting time at McDonald's earlier on. I will tell you that in a minute, but I'm just going to get to Gary's story, the saga of Gary and his fully erect baby burger. So he eats like a quarter, but his wife must have been like, it's like long-suffering wife, be like, he always does this, trying to show off in front of his mates, like, I'll just order everything. And she's like, you'll never be able to eat it, Gary. And he's like, oh, I can order what I want. And he's just like, oh, it's so hard being like the old ball and chain trying to stop me from ordering every single thing in my burger, like always. And he ate like a fifth of it, and that is a waste of money. There's people starving in like Scunthorpe and that, and he's ordering all the food and just throwing it away. He may as well have said, could you make me just cook everything you got back there and just chuck it, just flip it out the window as soon as it's ready, and I'll just pay for that. I just like watching chefs work, and it was an open plan kitchen, so he's like, I just want to look at it. I appreciate food visually, but not as an item of sustenance. If that is a real word, I think it is sustenance. And yeah, so he but it was too hard to eat. It's like 4 meals in when me and my friend Dan Watson were kids. We used to make a bowl with all the stuff that he had in his cupboards. We used to get waffles. He didn't keep his waffles in the cupboard, but the bowl was in the cupboards. But it's just saying, though, isn't it? Everything in the cupboard is a saying. It's a northern saying that I say. So we'd get like waffles and beans and bacon and sausages and put it all in a big bowl, mix it all together, and then we would both get a fork and just eat it out of the same bowl. That is the kind of upbringing I had, me and my friend Dan. But he's done that with a burger and paid for it. He's paid a lot of money for it, and everyone's a dick. I used to go to so freelance show-offs sort of pissed me off a bit. Like there's just no need for it. The kind of people when you go and get a curry, they're all like a file, and you're like, why are you ordering that? You may as well just set fire to your own head. It's ridiculous. Like I had a mate called John Michael. I'm gonna full name him John Michael Hardy. John Hardy. John Hardy is kind of a cool name. He sounds like an action hero, but he has 2 first names with a hyphen. John Michael. And I used to do music. I went to music college as a singer, and got taught to sing by a Christian singer. I don't know, is that unnecessary? She used to sing on songs of praise a lot, and her defining feature is God. And we used to sing all sorts. We used to sing psalms and hymns, and a man of constant sorrow was something we constantly sang. But John Michael Hardy was he played bass. He was quite a big guy. He was the kind of guy who'd come in, and if a couple of people were like hungover or whatever, he would be like, oh, well, he would always say that he had drank like an impossible amount of alcohol the night before and was just like fine. It was like, oh, I just had like 3 bottles of too much. I had like 2 bottles of JD last night. Just like, we were like, what were you doing? And he was like, I was just at home. We were like, why? Why would you did something happen? Do you know what I mean? Did someone die? I said die like my dad then. Die? My dad doesn't talk like that. It sounds more like a parrot. But it's his accent, but in a high-pitched voice. There you are. I said, don't be my dad. Don't be my dad listens. You right, Dad? How's it going, Dad? Jimmy, you can be my dad. But we went out for an end of college curry, and I'm a Rogan Josh kind of guy. That's my speed. The reason why I first ever ordered the Rogan Josh was because it sounded like Regan, and that's my second name. I wanted to order myself as a curry, and I would say that I am like a Rogan Josh as a man, a lamb one, because I'm young, I'm a fledgling person, and I like to follow the crowd, much like a little lamb. But sometimes I will stray off, and the ewe, which is my mum, she's a ewe, which is hard to say. Ewe. She's you. My mum is you, and she will have to occasionally break off from the pack, which some sheep don't like doing. If you are listening, Mum, I'm not calling you a sheep. It's an analogy. It's an analogy. She would get me back into the herd so that I wasn't picked off by whatever is roaming these streets. Panthers. What animals have we got here? Panthers. Definitely on the moors is a panther, isn't there? That's what all them books are about. The hound. There's a hound. That's in Baskervilles. Is that British? Baskervilles? Baskervilles. Where is that? North. Everything's north. We live next to the southern sea. So, no. If you ever go to Baskervilles, watch out. Hound on the loose. I mean, that book is about 150,000 years old, so it's probably dead. But you know, mythical animals live forever, like Loch Ness or the Yeti, or I was going to say Piers Brosnan. I don't know why. Maybe I was going to say Piers Morgan, but I couldn't say Piers Morgan because I was suddenly thinking about James Bond from the 90s. It was the best James Bond, in my opinion, but I always feel like your favorite James Bond is the James Bond you grew up with, and the James Bond I grew up with was GoldenEye. So yeah, don't really like James Bond very much. I am looking forward to him being a black woman though. I don't know if that's on the cards, but it's gonna happen. Yeah, the girl from Fleabag is going to be involved in the writing team of the new James Bond, and apparently he's going to apologise to all the women, a bit like the start of Aziz Ansari's special. Yeah, because he that woman did not want to go down on him. Anyway, yeah, so freelance showing off. Yeah, so he just didn't eat his burger, and I feel like he shouldn't have fucking ordered it. And I didn't think anyone... But the thing is, they're not going to say no. Like, the people who work there aren't going to say no, are they? They're going to be like, order all you want because you're going to have to fucking pay for it. But maybe it was his birthday. Maybe it was like, it's my bloody birthday. I'm going to have all this food in the burger. See those chairs? Put them in that burger. But, you know, maybe, you know... it's fine. There was a stand which does selfies right by the door of the changing area, and occasionally I had to go in there. And when I'd walk out, I'd suddenly appear in the selfies of children, which was they're on Facebook if you search Seven Hotel Diner. You can. I managed to avoid most of them, but it happened a lot. And there's a couple of them. You just see a chef just creeping in the back of some little girls' selfies, which is not the kind of look I was originally going for, but you know, sometimes you have to photobomb a child to really live your life. I went to McDonald's today. They were having a right mare. I hadn't been to McDonald's for quite a long time. Last time I went to McDonald's, I didn't get anything. I just sat and watched three comedians really go to town on some chicken nuggets after a gig. I didn't get anything. I claimed it was because I didn't agree with McDonald's, but really it's because I was poor. So if you are listening, you know, send me some nuggets in the post in a sort of care package. Nuggets, maple butter, and a small hat to put them in. I'll put nuggets on one side, butter on the other, and I'll have maple butter nuggets until the cows come home, which is around about 3:20. Yeah, I was in McDonald's having a mare. They were having a mare. I was having a McDonald's. And there, have you ever been to McDonald's? I quite like it. Anyway, but if their computer shut down, then the whole place just dissolves. The people who work there go into a meltdown. It turns out they just start running. They just start running around, and you know, nothing ever happens when people start just running around aimlessly. It's hard to really concentrate on what you're doing, and the only thing, if people running around aimlessly, it works if you are doing a bleep test. That's the only time you can run around aimlessly. I had to do several bleep tests in my life. I did a bleep test when I was at school, which I thought was kind of cruel because we're not trained athletes, and there was one guy in my school who went on to become a footballer, and he was good at the old bleep test. And the thing is that it's the running bit. It's not the problem. It's the really fast turning around. You have to sort of do that. You have to sort of stop immediately and go back the other way. And that's what I found hard. I ended up just falling over a lot while trying to turn around. But you do get that really satisfying laminated basketball court squeak on the floor, which is the reason why I used to like playing badminton with my stepmom, because if you can get it right, you get a really satisfying squeak. And if you get that squeak, you really, really, really feel like a sports person. It's part that squeak is part of it, as is the tennis squeal. And I was thinking of one other thing when I was talking about this. That really, really makes you like sportsman like. You get the squeak, you get the tennis squeal, and you get confidently showering with boys, which is something I didn't do a lot. Did a lot of showering in my shorts. I reckon you still get clean. Your probably crotch gets a bit more clean than the rest of your body because it's got all that water hanging around in the fabric. You know, just soaking your junk up. But You had a naked shower at school? No.
We
She's-
didn't have showers.
They didn't have showers. They did PE and they just carried on about the day, just stinking the place up. That's cool. They're not. What was
We
it?
went to the leisure centre.
What?
We went to the leisure centre to do our sports. They had
Yeah.
showers.
How come nothing ever leisurely happens at a leisure centre? They call it a leisure centre. What they should call it is the endurance centre. I think that sometimes people go to the pool where you just fall. You see a lot of floating old people in a pool. It must be difficult when you're a lifeguard because after a while you must be like, They got a big stick, ain't they? So you're like, do I poke that person? They have been floating for 14 and a half minutes. With their eyes closed and the swimming hat on. Old people wrinkling up in the pool. Do old people get super, super wrinkly in a swimming pool? Because they go in wrinkly. If I bathe, and I do, if I bathe for more than 10 minutes, I look like a fresh prune, which is it sounds like a compliment because it sounds fresh, but it's also a prune. So they already are wrinkly going in as well, and that's where you get the phrase "fucking horrible pruny old people." But they go in wrinkly, and their skin must just be like just mental when they come out, like corrugated cardboard. I feel like, God, leathery skin. Oh, that's quite an image, isn't it? Old people. Oh my God. I cannot wait to become an old person. One day I fully intend to get old. And when I was a teenager, I used to listen to a lot of Nirvana and a lot of Soundgarden and a lot of the Radiohead, the happy bands, I call them, but the bands that they have songs like Suicide. Soundgarden have got a song like Suicide, and Kurt Cobain wanted to call In Utero I Hate Myself and I Want to Die, which influenced Oasis writing Live Forever. And then what the fuck? It's outside. Someone's streaming. I thought my phone was streaming. But so I was like, I won't even make it past 30. And obviously I thought I was going to be, by this time, I was going to be on my fourth album, The Fifth Addiction, and Dead at 27, like one of the cool guys, or the cool guy club, like Amy Winehouse, and other people, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, all the J's, Kurt Cobain, but no, now I want to be an old person. I want to live to the grand old age of 105. I want a letter from the Queen, and I want her to be alive when she sends it. I don't want no letter from King Charles. He'll be dead too, surely. How old's King Charles? How old's Prince Charles? It must be good being a prince all the way to old men, because princes, you generally say, like Prince Charming is always younger than 30. You never see an old man saving any princesses, do you? So I feel like King Charles, he's lived as a prince his whole life, and he's people still think that it's quite like the little girls want a prince, don't they? I think they're trying to change that. They're trying to change that in nursery rhymes. Now people are going to want to be saved by, I don't know, an androgynous sort of protester. I want to be saved by Extinction Rebellion. Brenda Greenhouse. What's she called? Greta Thunberg. That child who keeps breaking into the G8 conference and shouting at everyone. Her. Is she doing a good thing? Probably, but children should shut up. We've got it under control, Brenda. We're going to move. Elon Musk is taking us to Mars, which already has a fucked up atmosphere. So nothing to worry about, mate. The Earth will be fine. And the Stoats will inherit the Earth. That's what I think, and I've always believed that. What the fuck was I talking about? I was talking about something. I saw an old couple and they were both in Hawaiian shirts. Now you gotta love a man in a Hawaiian shirt. I talked about this about 2 episodes ago when you like, this man has lived in this town. Like, Brighton is a very there's some houses in Brighton that are really Brighton-y houses. And when you see an old man with white hair, short white hair, like a wholesome old man, like at the end of Saving Private Ryan, at the start and then the end of Saving Private Ryan, Ryan, who is played by Mark Wahlberg. Is that right? Mark Wahlberg. Not Tom Hanks, because he gets shot on a bridge. Mark Wahlberg, he's an old man, but he's a wholesome American old man. So he's got a shirt tucked in. He's got short white hair. Looks like a wholesome American man. And in Brighton, you get them. And sometimes they're wearing little pot pie hats, and I really, really like them. And I saw an old couple. And they were wearing Hawaiian shirts, and they were clearly either coming back from their holes or going on to their holes, because this place was Sevenoaks, so it's kind of is a little hotel diner. So it's they must have been stopping over for the night, and he held the door open for his little wife, and they were both just really old. I'm going to say 79 years old. It's probably too old, but I feel like you're considered an old man when you're like 69 plus 70 old. You're old, sir. If you're 70 and you're listening to this, you're old. And I'm jealous of you, because I want to be an old man. And he touched a bum. Sometimes when I'm out and about, I like to pretend I'm an Italian man, and by that I don't mean fascist. I mean I put my hand on people's bums, like Italian, because Italians can confidently walk around with their hand in the back pocket of their partner. If you do it in this country, your partner doesn't like it. It turns out, but if you do it in Italy, they love it. You walk around hands on the arse, hands up the arse sometimes, and they eating your fresh fish and just having a better life than us. Eating olives all over the place. Olives for breakfast. Olives in your pillowcase. So I want to be them. I want to be an old man. I don't want to live in a retirement home. I just want to be left in a chair. Do you know, like one of them grumpy old men who are just left in a chair, and you go around and you're like, oh, there's Dad in his chair. And I'll be drinking. I'd have started drinking again by then, and my drink of choice will be Special Brew. And I will smoke B&H Black, because what have I got left to live for? Sorry if I know old people listening there. You got a lot left to live for, briefly. But I want to sit in a chair, and I want you to put on TV programs created by young people. I want to watch whatever's out, but whatever shit MTV are cooking up in 100 years. How old am I? I'm minus 20. No, I am 40. No, 38 years. Fuck. 38 years, and I'm going to be 70-year-old man. My balls are going to be at my knees. And I'm going to be wearing a Hawaiian shirt. I'm going to be groping the behinds of unknown ladies. I'm going to sit in my chair. I'm going to be drunk. I'm going to make noises like this all the time. And I'm going to be like, put that TV program on, and then spend my whole time just telling everyone how shit it is. It's going to be good. And I'm looking forward. I'm going to have a lazy boy recliner that you're probably going to be able to plug yourself into, cut a little hole out the bottom. If you get caught short, just fucking shit in the chair, mate. Shit right in that chair. But let's see if we make it that long. People keep assuming I'm a drug dealer. I was in the pub the other week, and it was really busy. And I was just sat there looking like I look like with some of my friends, and post-comedy gig. And a lady came up to me, and she said, where do you get your cocaine? She didn't say, can you get some cocaine? She said, where do you get your cocaine? And I don't think I give off the cocaine vibe. For me, cocaine is like American Psycho. It's people in suits. It's people sweating a lot, and I do sweat a lot, to be honest. Maybe that's why you said that. But you know, I did. I know people who know people, so I did help her out in the end. I just thought it was. I am not going for the cocaine vibe. If anything, I'm going for a bottle of painkillers and half a bottle of Chardonnay. That's my look. I don't know why I chose Chardonnay. Chardonnay, white or red? No, if I was going out, I'd choose a deep red. I'd go for a Merlot. I don't really like Merlot, but I feel like I'd be like, I'll have this drink, but it would last me a good 45 minutes because I don't really like it. So I'd sip that and contemplate whether or not I want to do the bottle of pills. Didn't intentionally talk about suicide then, but then I did. Okay, one second. If you listen this far, I want to drop in a little advert. Normally I do this right at the end, but I feel like I alienate my audience by talking absolute fucking nonsense all the time. So I want to get this in now. If you've come to 35 minutes, I mean, you're probably going to listen to the end, or you fell asleep, or you didn't even know your phone was on and it's on mute. But I'm going to say phone, but you know, any audio device. This Thursday is the Verdict Comedy Club, man, and we've got some good ticket sales, which is good for August, sorry, in the summer. You know, post Pride, everyone's a bit frazzed. Everyone's a bit frazzed by partying with the gays, and if you remember a couple of episodes ago, they know how to party, man. So they really people have been trying to keep up in there. And I wasn't there, so they might have done all right. Kylie Minogue was there, and also Grace Jones, the one of the coolest ladies in the world. Who else? I don't know. Kylie and Grace. Oh yeah, Mel C. I saw someone shared a photo of Mel C at the Brighton Pride Festival. That's cool, isn't it? None of the other Spice Girls care about gay rights. Just Mel C. She was there pulling out her hits of the early noughties. I can't remember any of them off the top of the head. I think one was with Dane Bowers, if you remember that dude. We're talking Daniel Bedingfield era music here. You know, if you're too young to know who Daniel Bedingfield is, then you're too young to really get into my inner circle. It's a Daniel Bedingfield-based quiz that I do when I meet new friends, and that's why I haven't got any new friends. The Verdict Comedy Club's coming up. You've got a well good lineup because it's very expensive to go to Edinburgh Festival, so there's a lot of good comedians who aren't going there. They're either lazy or no, they're not. I'm trying to promote them. Remember promotion? They're very funny. They're some of my favorite people on the scene. We've got Dan Fardell, fellow sober man. He quit. He became sober a couple of weeks before me. Was quite an inspiration for my own sobriety. Well, he is now. I didn't know at the time. I was drunk, so I didn't find that out. But now he's 50 days in. He drinks a lot of Adnam's Ghost Ship, which is a alcohol-free ale. I don't do that. I just drink too much Coca-Cola. I did an open mic a couple of weeks ago, new material night, where I drank 5 bottles of Coke over the course of the night. I just wanted to join in, just wanted to fit in with everyone, and then just drowned myself in fizzy drinks. So that's didn't fit in. Everyone thought I was a weirdo, and I was surrounded by plastic. So Brenda, the heel face, she probably wouldn't like me because I'm contributing. I did go and throw all them bottles in the sea as well. I thought that, you know, the thing is about the sea. I care about crabs and crustaceans, and them hermit crabs. They need places to live, and if you don't put stuff in because all the other, if you stop putting stuff in the sea, where all the hermit crabs live. Did you think about that, Sarah? Brenda? Did you think about that? No. What about a raft? One day I want there to be enough stuff in the sea so that when we're all in the sea, I'll be able to build a raft without having to have hoarded planks and plastic beforehand. So, you know, and also, yeah. So No, because it goes to landfill. All that stuff will only end up in the sea when the global warming becomes too much and the sea becomes where we are. That's when all the landfill will go in the sea, which is bad still, isn't it? So, what are the wind turbines made out of? Metal, plastic, metal and plastic. That's in the sea. No one cares about that. No one says anything about that. One day when they stop using them, they're not just going to take them out of the sea and put them somewhere else. They're going to leave those guys in the sea, aren't they? There's still things from World War II in the sea. So I mean, I'm sure she probably didn't approve of World War II as a thing, but I'm going to say I don't know anything about Extinction Rebellion. They're not for me, and it's not because I don't care about the environment. It's because it's isn't it for children? Isn't it for children trying to show us that it's basically skive off school and learn that'll show the parents something like that. Do a protest instead of maths and save the world. And I'm fully behind them. I think that's great, but I just don't think I'm allowed in. But I do care about the environment. I put stuff in the correct bins. Just yesterday. Now I've realised that I didn't recycle my my McDonald's thing from earlier, though. Though I was stood next to the recycling thing. I think Thighs put hers in the recycling thing, and I just put my frozen strawberry lemonade in the bin. It was disgusting. It was like if someone said, "Do you want these melted but cold sweets for breakfast?" Though that is something that I probably would say yes to. I had a breakfast wrap, and she had an egg McMuffin with a hash brown. But they were a bit frazzed. I feel like they expected me to kick off about their service, but I wouldn't do that. There's only McDonald's would have to be really, really bad for me to be like to be like, what is I expected this to be really good. Like you just go in, don't you? You go in and you eat your husk and you live for another day and you carry on with your life. I imagine the area of Brighton where it's in is the sort of roughest bit of a very nice town, so maybe they do have some rather anxious people who do kick off about their McDonald's and stuff. What was I doing? Oh yeah, come to my on Thursday is the Verdict Comedy Club, and all of a lot of my great friends are on. We've got Dan Fardell. He's opening up. I haven't seen him probably since the Fringe before last. I haven't seen him perform. No, I did. I've seen him a couple of new material things, but I haven't seen his new set. So I'm really looking forward to that. We've got Sophie Mackay. She's on second, and third we've got Joe Foster, who I believe may have been going to go up to Edinburgh, but then he was doing a show with Phil Gerard in the Brighton Fringe called the Fuck Around. But then Phil had to get one of his kidneys out. So I don't know if they were just doing the Brighton one, but that definitely is put Phil Gerard out of the action until at least October. So hopefully he gets well soon. He does a podcast called Crash Bang Wallop. I think I've talked about that before. It's very good if you like comedy podcasts about disasters. That's a very good one. The other half of that comedy podcast is Phil Lucas, who drives the Volks Railway. So it's very very cool thing. So Joe Foster's there. Carl Kazana, he was a runner up in Bath comedian. He works at Waterstones in town. He's a very funny dude. And then who else? We've got Freya McGee. She's in the middle bit. She's got the new act spot, but she's a bit longer because we think she's really good. And she's just passed a chemistry degree with a 2-1, which is 0.1 better than my 2-2 that I got in my music degree. So she knows more about chemistry than I know about the major scale. So that's cool. And then the last person I'm gonna have to have a quick look actually. So sorry if you're one of me mates. Sorry if you're a good friend of mine. I'm just going to. Oh, it's is it Aid? Yeah, it's Aid. Folia Deli. Aid Folia Deli. Who really wanted to come and do because we got a jazz piano player at the we got a piano player at the Verdict, and Aid came to the last one and he really wanted to tell a story with piano accompaniment, so he's come to do that. He's a very funny guy. He had a show called Comfortably Dumb at the Brighton Fringe Artista. I don't know if any of you guys went to that, but he's a very funny dude. He tells it like it is. He's a sort of an aggressive opinion giver, and it's funny. I like it. And we've got obviously James, big boy James is there, and then Mooney's coming back. Mooney, Michael Mooney, who the Scottish guy we booked for last year's St. Patrick's Day because all the Irish people were out. All the Irish people were booked up. So next best thing, get a Celt. In the past, they were all called Celts. So we got ourselves a Celt, bagged a Celt, and he came down and absolutely smashed it. So we're getting him down for the summer one. As well, and it's going to be good. You can also catch Mooney at his own gigs, a comedy at the Poets, which is in Hove. Very nice gig that I did a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, very good. My friend Vlad was on there. He is a Macedonian. But yeah, it's cool. I mean, comedy still happens in the South, even though everyone's up in Edinburgh. I've seen a lot of posts from all my friends, some having a good time, some having a bad time, some having no audience, some having all the audience, and some people are in competitions, which is cool. I was up there last year in a thing called So You Think You're Funny. Turns out I was a bit funny, but not the most funny. Now there's the guy who won ours is called Danny Garnell, and he's really, really taken the scene by storm. Sometimes you see these competition winners and they don't do a whole lot afterwards, but Danny's just been to Just for Laughs Festival in Montreal, which is a big dream of mine. I've watched a lot of my favourite comedian sets from there, and I always try to listen into a thing. My particular favourite is a 10-minute set of old Fitzdog Greg Fitzsimmons, which I talked about in the very first episode of this, where he sort of died in an awesome way. And one of my favorite American comics, Greg Fitzsimmons, is a special guest. No, he's not really. That'd be amazing. I'd love to see that. I was going to buy a Theo Von ticket yesterday night, but they only have the only tickets left are for the 2 p.m. show on Saturday when he tours in London, and they're right at the back. And if I was going to watch him, I would like to be sat sort of directly in front of him, maybe in like a club. I'd prefer it in a club or something. I just want to. He's got really good energy and vibe, and mannerisms and wordplay and stuff, and I'd want to be up close for that. I did see Bill Burr at the Royal Albert Hall, which was good, but like I feel like you miss a lot of the nuance. I think Burr's special was I watched him the first time he was at the Albert Hall for his 50th birthday, and now he's just done a special. He liked that Albert Hall run so much that he came back to do another Albert Hall run this year, and then did his new special. So I'll be looking forward to watching that. I imagine some of the material would be similar. But it was real nice because the Albert Hall is one of my favorite venues I've been to because it's iconic, and it was cool to see one of my favorite comedians in an iconic British venue. But as a place to watch comedy, unless you sat right at the front, you want to see people sweat, don't you? You want to be almost spat on. I accidentally spat on an audience member the other week. I didn't mention it. She didn't mention it, but I saw it, and she saw it. That's one of the problems as well. Sitting at the front, you might get gobbed on like in the old punk days, because you get very animated sometimes. Oh yeah, I did. I haven't been back on until since I did the Glee Club. It was really cool, but it's a bit embarrassing because there was, semi-famous but veteran comedian Glenn Wool was the opening act, and he was in the backstage with the green room when I arrived, and I didn't know who he was at first, and in the middle of the Glee, so they have like an opener TV comic opening, does about 20, And then there's a break. They do this like weird PowerPoint, what we found on the internet section. And then they do the 3 acts of comedy carousel in the middle, which are like newer acts. And then they have a headliner. But Glenn Wool was the opening act. And this dude's like been on live at the Apollo. He's a well-known comedian. Like I know the name Glenn Wool. I just never seen, well, even if I had seen him before, I just didn't recognize him in that moment. And I asked him, I was like, oh, so you ever done like, you ever played here before? And I asked him all just stupid questions, and he was like, "Yeah, I have. Yeah, he's Canadian. I'm not going to do the accent, but he was like, "Yeah, I have. Yeah." And then I was like, "Okay, cool." And then he went on stage. He was really great. The audience were a bit sort of lackluster for sort of kind of everyone, but like a bit. But like he had a really good set, I thought, and I thought it was really funny. And then we hung out for a bit after that, and we were just like talking about like comedy and like just like whatever, and then he left, and then the next day I tried to I tried to Google him, and then I was like, oh shit, he's like a genuine comedian, whereas we're just in the middle just fucking chancing it and like just like talking nonsense and stuff and just trying our best. He's like a genuine one who does it as a thing and people know who he is. And I spoke to my friend Steve, who doesn't even do comedy but likes comedy, and he knew who he was and stuff, and I feel a bit post embarrassment from but I suppose he'd be like, oh, he wouldn't have, but he's not like really well known, so I think when you get to a certain level you want people to be like, oh, I know who you are, because I'm like, shit, everyone, he knows who I am. But if you're really famous, you wouldn't want people to be like, oh, it's you, and he'd be like, oh yeah, it's me, sort of thing. But I don't know what I'm talking about. But yeah, do come to the Verdict, which is on Thursday. It's £3 to get in. You better buy tickets on the door. I'm not gonna perform, but I'm gonna go because it's a real fucking great lineup, and it's my gig, so I should go. And I'd like you to come too. I'm going up to. Going to be in London on Wednesday at New Dawn nightclub, which is always a bit worrying when you've got to stand up in a nightclub, but hopefully it should be fun. That's called. It sounds silly to say Rudy Liquids. Rudy Liquid. Rudy Liquids. Sounds like I'm trying to say liquids. But I guess if you're listening, you probably thought I was going to laugh at the fact that I'm saying liquid. But no, it's because it sounds like I'm trying to say liquid. Rudy Liquid. Liquid. 5 minutes to shine, it's called. Rudy Liquid's 5 minutes to shine. And God, I hope I shine, because I did it before, and they had to change the venue, and they changed the community centre, but they had a cool DJ and stuff, and everyone was just getting smashed on rum and not listening to any of the acts, and they had a bit of a awkward time. I opened, and they weren't really that on board with the stuff I had to say about magic mushrooms and stuff. So he was like, "Oh, come back because we're going to do it again in this other venue, and maybe we'll have a better time there." Turns out the other venue is a nightclub, so it should be fun anyway. And I've got a couple of new material things coming up this week as well. Tonight and tomorrow, it's in Brighton. But definitely come on Thursday if you're around and you're not at the Fringe. It should be good. There's a few things at the Fringe that you should probably go and watch if you're there. If you're there, then you're probably not listening to me. But Billy Stone's up there in Best of Class. Simone Belshaw's up there doing Goblin. It's just a bunch of great shows, man. Yeah, this is the Alkaline podcast. The podcast where me, UK comedian Riggs. I was at a wedding. Someone asked me why I was called Riggs, and I need to get a better story for it because it's really boring. Like my full name is David Charles Regan, and when I was a bit younger, we used to hang out in a group of Davids, group of Daves. We had 4 or 5 Daves. We had Sensible Paul, Phlegm, Scav Dan, who was my friend Dan from earlier. Everyone called him Scav Dan. I didn't really like calling him Scav. Scav is a northern word for if you're always asking people for stuff like cigarettes, or like, do you know if you get out some food and like a seagull's like, I want that. Sometimes you'll meet people when you're a bit younger, maybe not as an adult, whereas you pull out some food and he's like, can I have a bit of your food? Just straight away. That is up north what we call a scav. I guess it comes from scavenger, but Scav Dan. And then we had a bunch of Daves. We had Concord Dave, who had a giant snoz. He had a big nose. So I guess that's why they called him Concord Dave. And I've got quite a large snoz myself, so I kind of dodged the bullet. If you think my nose is big, you should have bloody seen Concord Dave, mate. Sensible Paul was called Sensible Paul because he always wore a tucked-in shirt. A buttoned-up, tucked-in shirt. And was never up for a laugh and had a normal haircut. And I think he went on to work in IT. Sensible Paul. And all the Chads. So we had a lot of Chadwicks there. Chad, and he had a brother called Dave as well. Dave Chadwick. I think he just got called Dave. And there was a bunch of other Daves. But I got called Riggs. Because my second name is Regan. And Riggs begins with an R and has a G in it. So I think that's where it came from. A guy called Craig Waite, who used to kind of bully me a little bit at school, but not bully me. But one day he asked me for £1 from my lunch money, and it's a classic it's a classic story, isn't it? Someone said, "Give me your lunch money." He didn't say, "Give me your lunch money." He said, "Can I borrow £1?" And I gave him £1. And then the next day he said, "Can I borrow £1?" And I was like, "Of course," because I'm a generous nice guy, and also I'm a bit anxious, and also I was a bit shy, and also I was about 13. And I just moved from a different country, which was Northern Ireland, to this country. And then the next day, he said, "Can I have £1?" And then eventually, I ended up paying him £5 a week to go to school. He would just ask for £1, and eventually he said, "Give me £1." And then I had my friend Richard. I said, I was at his house, and I said, "I really wish I could stop giving this guy £1." And then he said, "Just stop giving him £1." And I was like, and then it kind of didn't even cross my mind. I didn't want to upset anyone or get punched square in my Concord face. So and eventually I built up the courage and I said, "No, I don't want to give you £1." And then he stopped being my friend. So that was the guy who named me Riggs. So since the age of 13 or 14, I've been called Riggs. I believe it's from Lethal Weapon 4 and 3. And 1, and also Lethal Weapon 2. He had a mate called Murtagh. I've not seen him, but there is a comedian called Rick Murtagh. And somebody said, KO, my friend KO, runs Junkyard Dogs, and I'm super happy, and I know Mike said we should do a French show together called Riggs and Murtagh. And I laughed, because I could tell what the joke was, but I've never watched Lethal Weapon. I've seen a clip of Riggs, Mel Gibson, on the toilet, and he can't get off the toilet. Is it him on the toilet, or is it Murtagh? Have you ever watched Lethal Weapon? No. He's on the toilet, and he can't get off the toilet because there's a bomb in the toilet. So I'm named after him. But when people say it, they're like, "Oh, it's from Lethal Weapon," and I always feel a bit embarrassed because I am an adult man, and I should like action films, but I've never watched Lethal Weapon. I've never watched Die Hard. Name an action film.
Fast and Furious?
I've seen that.
Okay, sorry.
Name another one.
Mulan.
Moulin Rouge or Mulan? Is Moulin Rouge the sequel? Is it about... I was going to... Oh, there's a slight racist bit there, isn't there? Because Mulan's about an American Indian.
No, it's not.
Mulan? That's Pocahontas. What's Mulan? She geisha.
No, she does like fighting.
Mulan's a fighter.
Since I was a kid.
Mulan is... there's a storyline in Mulan. She is a fighter from the East who helps Brooks and Hare get across America. That's Sacagawea. Mulan's like an Asian Sacagawea who can fight. Kill Bill. It is. Mulan is the star of Kill Bill. Starring Uma Thurman. That's Mulan, not Kill Bill. Yeah, so Sober Time app is saying me I've done... let me just unlock my phone. I've done... let's have a look here. 2 months, 14 days, 15 hours, 35 minutes and 3 seconds. And to be honest, that last 3 seconds was hard. I really could have really done with a gin. That's 75.65 days, player. And also, I got my sober for a month. Oh, we knew about that. That was the 20th of June. 14.35 days to go before the big 90, which is when I get my next badge. And then, unfortunately, I don't get another badge until I've done half a year, which is another 90 days. So I want my bloody badges. That's the only reason why I'm doing it. And I'm going to have a beer to celebrate. This has been the Alkaline Podcast. My name is Riggs. This is the podcast where I attempt to get sober or die trying. And as we can clearly hear, sober is winning because I want to be an old Italian gentleman holding the door open for my wife and then groping her behind. Until I get to the age of 105, where I expect a card from one of the princes, the ginger one, by then might be the king, Harry, the one who likes to cosplay Nazis, him. I want to receive a card from him that says, "Well done for being sober. Here's your card," and then I'll die immediately after that, clutching the hand of future King Harry, as I whisper into his ear, "I love you."